July 2025. The sun hammers down on Carolina Wilga. She's been lost for 11 days. 15 miles of wandering has drained the last of her strength, and now she can't go any farther. Out here, she is completely at the mercy of the Outback. And you're about to find out her fate isn't an exception, it's a grim reality. You don't need a geography degree to notice Australia has an absurd amount of empty space. The population clings to the coastline like they have commitment issues, and when you look at a map, you can see why. There's only 8.37 people per square mile in Oz. The closest equivalent on the map is the Sahara. In fact, 90% of Australians live within an hour of the ocean. Is it because of the stunning views, the perfect beaches, or is it because everything beyond that coastal strip looks like a survival show that never ends? Let's find out. The first place that can give us an insight into Australia's empty lands is Coober, Pedy. Population around 1,400. It's 526 miles north of Adelaide. Some people call it the opal capital of the world because the ground keeps coughing up shiny rocks. The trade is big enough to support what looks like a regular town, but don't be fooled. Those buildings, mostly empty, just entrances to the real town. Shops, churches, hotels, entire homes carved into the rock like a modern-day hobbit kingdom. This is the only place where going full mole people is cheaper than having an air conditioner, and somehow this made the town a tourist attraction. But Coober Pedy is the warm-up, because Australia's interior only gets hotter, drier, and more aggressively uninhabitable the farther you go. The Outback takes 73% of the continent, home to just 5% of its people. Average summer temps, 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Water sources, occasional. It's not quite the Sahara, but it's like a distant relative, the kind you see at holidays and suddenly remember why you avoid them. Average temperatures go above 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Average. But the heat isn't the only problem. Where's the water, you may ask? Sure, there are a few oases out here, little green spots of congratulations, you're still alive. Most prominent ones are Delucy Springs or the ancient Finca River, but on a continent this size, that's barely enough to keep a cactus hydrated. Most of Australia's interior is a BYO water zone, where rainfall shows up like a deadbeat dad, rarely, and always at the worst possible moment. And even when it does rain, it's not gentle plants and rainbows rain, it's the flash flood that eats your car kind. But we'll get to that catastrophe later. Between the heat, the dryness, and some of the oldest, most nutrient-depleted soils on the planet, the Outback is a place that simply does not care about humans much. And even with modern tech, the Outback still regularly wins. Only 6% of Australia's territory is suitable for agriculture. The rest? Some of the poorest, grumpiest, least fertile soils on Earth. It's dirt that has given up. The continent doesn't have an Ice Age legacy either. Turns out glaciers are great for soil. They grind rock into fresh, nutrient-rich debris and then politely leave it behind when they decide to dip back to the poles. Australia got none of that. And I don't know if you noticed, but the Outback is huge. Early explorers died constantly. The ones who didn't had to get creative. The Wills expedition of 1860, they ended up eating their own camels and horses. When your transport turns into the dish of the day, you know you made the wrong choices. Air travel didn't make the Outback safer either. Aviators could still end up stranded and starving if a flight went sideways. And the danger didn't stop with the invention of GPS. When Carolina Wilga's van broke down during her backpacking trip, she decided it would be better to set out for help. After walking for 11 days, surviving on meager supplies and puddle water, she had made her peace. She was never going to be found. But by sheer luck, a passing motorist spotted Carolina and she was airlifted to a hospital. Police were amazed that she had survived for so long. But Carolina wasn't unique. This is a common tale in the Outback. Back in 2021, a couple of tourists chose the wrong place at the wrong time and learned that the Outback is the epitome of mess around and find out. Jose Merlos and Nikki Wong were driving through South Australia with their dog when their car got bogged down in sand. And because it was January, the Outback cranked the thermostat past 100 degrees Fahrenheit just to make things interesting. They survived only by drinking, well, emergency fluids. They were found on a road someone uses literally once every 6 weeks. That's the Outback, a place so empty you have to plan your rescue in advance. The biggest city in the Outback is Kalgoorlie Boulder. Locals call it Kalgoorlie, and for that, I'm grateful. Anyway, it sits in Western Australia's Goldfields Esperance area. The population is about 30,000, and it exists only because of one thing: gold. Shiny rocks are powerful motivators. Honestly, everything about the Outback screams do not live here, but people still tried. After all, what's the point of having all that land if nobody's brave or desperate enough to use it? Back in 1788, King George III was a man on a mission. He wanted to clear and improve the land, no matter what. And if that meant handing convicts a get-out-of-jail-please-go-farm card, so be it. Why keep people locked up when the continent you're settling already looks like a prison level from a survival game? But to be fair, George wasn't totally delusional. On a map, the geography looked promising-ish. The Outback doesn't have many rivers, but the one it does have is the Murray River. Over 1,500 miles long, it's the biggest water ribbon Australia has, and its tributaries, 5 of Australia's longest rivers. Add it all together, and you've got a catchment covering 1/7 of the entire continent. On paper, that's an agricultural jackpot. In reality, you unlocked wet Mars. Settlers doubled down anyway. They even came up with ringbarking, basically tree assassination. They cleared 44% of New South Wales this way. And the payoff? Nothing. Zip. The soil just sat there, shrugging. No matter how many trees you strangle, you can't turn the Outback into a farming paradise. Trees and shrubs are kinda like sponges. The rain falls and they use most of it. The evaporated salt gets absorbed and doesn't contaminate fresh groundwater. Everyone wins. But when you start swinging an axe for farmland, more rain goes into the soil, and that means more salt. Your fields are now glorified hot dog water. So yeah, the Outback wasn't becoming the next Iowa. It was becoming a giant salt lamp. No, and if you like these deep geography dives, make sure you hit that subscribe button. At this point, my motivation's disappearing faster than the Great Barrier Reef. Anyway, in 2002, authorities found 4.32 to 4.9 million acres of land that was too salty to use, almost 7.5 times the size of the entire Australian Capital Territory. The worst of it? In southwest Western Australia and the Murray-Darling Basin, especially its western end. That's right, even Australia's river superstar couldn't avoid the Great Salty Curse. And yet, despite all this, Australia thrives, but only in one tiny slice of the continent, the coastline. Why does an entire continent depend on a narrow ring of land? Why did almost every major city pop up where the ocean meets the shore? And what does that mean for Australia's future? Let's dig in. Australia still cranks out way more food than it eats. Way more. It exports 70% of its agricultural production, about 90 billion Australian dollars in 2023 and 2024. That's a massive pile of money for a continent that's supposedly barren. And it all comes from the coastal plains. First of all, the coastal climate is absurdly good. It's like Australia hid all its nice weather in one narrow strip. Summers run in the 60s to 80s Fahrenheit. Winters are in the 30s to 50s. Meanwhile, the Eastern Gulf gets 59 to 65 inches of rain. Swan Coastal Plain gives off a mild Mediterranean vibe, and the Southeast Coastal Plain is one of the few places in the Southern Hemisphere with a temperate climate. This is Australia's Costco. It's where practically everything grows. Wheat, sugarcane, fruits, veggies, the works. Compared to the Outback right next door, the continent feels like it's having an identity crisis. But perfect weather isn't the only reason civilization hugs the coastline. For the real secret, head to New South Wales. Sydney, population 5.5 million, didn't get huge by accident. It sits on the largest natural harbor in the world. Port Jackson covers 21.2 square miles. It plunges to 148 feet. Cruise ships, cargo ships, Navy ships. If it floats, it fits. But Sydney's not the only coastal heavyweight. It's actually starting to lose the crown thanks to another top port. On August 30th, 1835, Melbourne was founded at the head of Port Phillip Bay, right where the Yarra River meets the sea. Another natural harbor, and somehow even busier than Port Jackson. 3 million shipping containers pass through every year, even though ships have to navigate the Rip, a stretch of water that looks like it was designed by someone who hates boats. And why? Because the Australian dollar demands tribute. Melbourne's central business district is already the most densely packed part of the country. Nearby suburbs like Carlton, South Yarra, Fitzroy, and Collingwood aren't far behind, all living that premium sardine lifestyle. The city's population is expected to hit 7.3 million by 2046, which means the sardines are about to need a bigger tin. Sydney and Melbourne are part of a clear pattern. Almost all of Australia's major cities, Brisbane, Newcastle, Adelaide, Headland, Darwin, the whole gang, they sit on major ports. These were the places British ships could actually reach without exploding. Civilization spread out from these hubs because they had everything a new colony needed: protection, trade access, and a place to park very large boats. And those harbors helped create one of history's great ironies. The descendants of the prisoners shipped here ended up richer than the people who exiled them. How's that for cosmic karma? And Australia isn't complaining. Its massive coastline of natural harbors turned the former penal colony into a full-blown export machine. Not just food, but gold, iron ore, natural gas, and oil. Basically anything the rest of the world is willing to pay for. If it's shiny, burnable, or exploitable, Australia will ship it. Sure, Australia might look hostile, but underneath? A continent sitting on over $20 trillion in natural resources, 8th in the world. Australia runs on mining booms. The 1850s gold rush was the moment the place stopped looking like a lifelong punishment and started looking like a startup with infinite growth potential. Over 1 million people flooded in. The population went from 430,000 in 1851 to 1.7 million 20 years later. Exports from New South Wales and Victoria grew sixfold. Not bad for a place that was supposed to be a jail with sunburn. And the gold rush didn't stop at one season. Round 2 hit in the late 19th century. New mines opened up in Western Australia, Queensland, and Western New South Wales. Western Australia alone jumped from 48,000 to 180,000 people between 1890 and 1901. Proof that nothing moves humans faster than the promise of gold. Well, except maybe free Wi-Fi. New boomtowns followed, including Kalgoorlie, born in the 1880s gold rush and still kicking because the gold hasn't run out yet. It's home to one of the world's biggest open-cut gold mines, adorably named the Super Pit. Broken Hill, out in the New South Wales Outback, was founded in 1883, and it still exists, which already makes it an Outback overachiever. Like Kalgoorlie, the mining never stopped. Broken Hill sits on one of the world's biggest deposits of silver, lead, and zinc. And by Outback standards, the weather is practically pleasant, meaning you don't go full lobster and boil alive. Highs in January hover around 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot, but not hallucinate hot. So there was money to be made, and only a medium amount of suffering required. Win-win. Fast forward to modern times. China decided it was glorious to get rich, and Australia suddenly became its favorite hardware store. Coal, liquefied natural gas, iron ore, all the fundamentals you need to build ghost cities that nobody lives in. The latest mining boom peaked in 2010 and hit 8.5% of Australia's GDP. New boomtowns popped up: Karratha, Port Hedland, places that look coastal but still behave like the Outback. Even in winter, they can flirt with 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, the boom ended. Property values did the fall-off-a-cliff thing. Karratha's home prices dropped 65% between 2012 and 2017. The inland town of Newman said, "Struth, hold my beer," and crashed 82%. Today, Newman's barely at 6,500 people. Karratha sits around 17,000. Port Hedland, about 15,300. And those older boomtowns? Broken Hill peaked at 30,000 people in 1966. That was its moment. It's been shrinking ever since. That's the reality of a mining town. People show up, dig until the money stops, and then go home. But the big coastal cities, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, that's a different story. there's always something happening because Australia's economy is actually diverse. Mining and agriculture are just two slices of the pie. Australia is also a financial heavyweight. Retail, property development, tech, you name it, Australia has it. And all of it works because the coastal cities have the ports that move everything the Outback coughs up. Those natural harbors are the arteries that keep the entire economy alive. Everything a thriving civilization needs is on the coast. Theoretically, there's no limit to how big these cities can get. Well, maybe. Because even here, the water problem hasn't magically gone away. Big cities drink water like teenagers guzzling energy drinks. And businesses, even worse. Data centers, including the ones keeping this very video alive, use 11 to 19 million gallons a day. And climbing. ChatGPT does not materialize out of thin air. Without water, these buildings would run hotter than the Outback in January. But even with those coastal rains, Australia is still the driest inhabited place on Earth. Antarctica is technically drier, but it doesn't count. Australia actually has cities to keep alive. Antarctica has birds in tuxedos. And amazingly, up until 1997, Australia was managing pretty well. The Murray's catchment, plus a bunch of TVA-style dams, kept the taps flowing. Not luxurious, but at least people could still brush their teeth. Then, everything changed. The Millennium Drought. The moment Australia looked up at the sky and realized, oh, we're on our own now. There was a strong El Niño in 1997. That meant coastal Australia got less rain, sometimes record lows. Meanwhile, the Outback got more rain than normal. Make it make sense. You can't. The weirdness didn't last, though. By 2002, almost the entire continent was in drought. Things hit peak misery in the mid-2000s. 2006 became one of Southeast Australia's driest years ever, with rainfall down 40 to 60%. Everything was crisp and crunchy. For many Australians, it felt like the Outback had marched right to the coast. La Niña finally broke the drought in 2010 to 2011, but it was too late. Australia had already lost half of its agricultural output. Half! Like the sky flipped a coin and said, you lose. And the drought made one thing painfully obvious. The big cities couldn't rely on dams and catchments anymore. They needed water from somewhere else. And in Australia, somewhere else means the ocean. You know, the same salty troublemaker that makes farming a nightmare. So in 2006, Perth opened the Perth Seawater Desalination Plant. At full blast, it supplies 17% of the city's water. But it's not enough, so they built another. The Southern Seawater Desalination Plant opened in 2012, adding another 20% of Perth's supply. But the drought wouldn't quit. So, Australia supersized things. The Sydney Desalination Plant opened in 2012. And in the same year, because apparently 2012 was Desalination Christmas, the Adelaide Desalination Plant opened. 50% of Adelaide's water, 10% of all South Australia's. And here's the really big one. The Victorian Desalination Plant, up to 60% of Melbourne's daily water supply. Australia has at least 26 desalination plants humming away around the coast. But desalination has its critics, loud ones. For starters, it's expensive. Sydney's plant cost 1.7 billion Australian dollars to build and then demanded $300,000 a day in payments to investors for 50 years, even when it wasn't producing water. And it's not just about the money. Desalination makes brine, polluted, salty sludge. You can't just pour it into the ocean and call it a day. It needs treatment, disposal, monitoring, more money, and more headaches. Imagine trying that in the Outback. You'd have to desalinate seawater and then haul it thousands of miles by truck or pipeline. All that cost, all that effort, all that infrastructure. And for what? To convince people to live in a region that's competing for the least livable place on Earth title? Those unbearable Outback temperatures, they're getting worse. In August of 2025, it's winter there, remember, the town of Unadada hit 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Only 102 people live there, but still, winter shouldn't feel like a malfunctioning sauna. And the heat gets even scarier. Western Australia has a triangle more terrifying than Bermuda's. The Outback's heat triangle between Onslow, Telfer, and Gascoyne Junction hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit in 2022. That's not weather, that's slow roasting. Remember Newman, the same town whose housing market evaporated after the mining boom? It hit almost 117 degrees Fahrenheit during heat waves this year. But hold on, Newman isn't at sea level. Put Newman at sea level and the real number jumps up to 126 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not just hot. That's why is my shadow sweating hot. And it's getting worse. Heat waves like this are coming by more often. What's not coming by more often? Rain. The Millennium Drought may have ended in 2010, but it feels like it was just Act 1 of a very grim trilogy. The Tinderbox Drought arrived between 2017 and 2019, and it hit in the one place you really don't want drought, the Murray-Darling Basin. Rainfall was 50% below normal the whole time. And the big finale, 2019, was both the hottest and driest year Australia had ever recorded. Congratulations, Mother Nature, you broke your own high score. And if you zoom out, the trend does not improve. Australia's recent wave of droughts looks like the worst in at least 400 years. So yeah, not great. Put simply, investing heavily in the Outback would be more trouble than it's worth. Technically possible? Maybe. Worth it? Absolutely not. Australia isn't empty by choice, it's empty by design. Geography built invisible walls long before people drew borders. The coast isn't just where Australians live, it's where Australia itself works. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack.